everybody. I'm BC, and it's time for our weekly wrap-up of Week 3 in the VR office. We're filming once again from inside Horizon workrooms, this time at the Lake Cabin. My wife continues to work on her Master of VR Filming Arts with me each week, so thank you. This week I spent a total of 21 hours and 27 minutes in the VR office across 37 different VR sessions in 7 categories. This is a slight drop of roughly 3 hours total from last week, but still over 50% of my time in the VR office. Let's dive into this week's stats. The largest chunk of time was spent in focus this week, coming in at 7 hours and 3 minutes across 12 VR sessions. This is a slight drop in a couple of hours from week 2. I found this week that I was in more Zoom calls, which meant that I was back on the webcam versus in my VR headset, reducing my solo work time. As I move through this experiment, I think that focus will be one of the biggest things to try and wrangle. Too much time alone in VR is not necessarily a good thing, so I'm not too concerned about the dip in these numbers. The solo time needs to be productive when I'm in here. Once again, meetings are a large space for me this week, which really should stop being a surprise, as collaborative VR is one of the biggest selling points of the VR office on this VR campus. I spent 5 hours and 21 minutes across 8 VR sessions and team meetings, and 3 hours and 14 minutes across 5 VR sessions in one-on-one meetings. While focus time decreased this week, both of these categories increased slightly. I had several meetings with people who I don't always meet with in VR, and that was pretty exciting. A couple of those folks even expressed an interest in working in VR in the future once my office experiment has concluded and I can provide more guidance around good use cases. The next use case was evening work, coming in at 3 hours and 6 minutes across 5 VR sessions. There was an upswing here this week mainly because I created several new videos which are all done in the evening. I continue my experimentation with filming with the pass-through camera, which involves using SideQuest and a video recording software, and Loom being my current choice for that. I also created a new video version of my About Me section for the blog, and my first VR office product review. Since these are all Carrier Pigeon XR things versus OSO VR things, I do that work off hours. It was almost a little too much this week, and I need to be careful about spending my evenings in the metaverse. Next, we have Mini Mindfulness, where I spent 1 hour and 39 minutes across 4 VR sessions. All the meditators were unavailable on Friday, so we had our first total miss one day this week. These sessions have become standard for me, though, and I don't worry about things changing at this point. It just continues to be the case that work meetings take priority over meditation, but with good calendar management, these short sessions are easy to fit in. I was able to host our weekly all-company community time again this week, but I had to duck out a little early for a meeting, so I only spent 35 minutes in one session. Despite the short session, we had a couple people join from other teams to play around a mini-golf with us. It was surprising to me how quickly we fell into a friendly banter, even though we work together rarely, and even then it's usually Slack messages versus Zoom meetings. Both additions were people I've played games with in the past and had work discussions with as well, so that natural rhythm shouldn't be a surprise. Building community using VR remains a priority for me with this project. A new category this week is VR Fitness, where I spent 24 minutes between 2 sessions. I used to use Supernatural for intense cardio, and I ended up hurting myself in the process with bad technique and an overestimation of my own abilities. So this week I decided to explore the stretching section of Supernatural and found that very helpful for some back pain that I've been managing. I have a hard time remembering to do this daily, so it isn't a habit yet, but I hope it will become one in the weeks ahead. The final slice of time highlights my use of the Quest Pro this week at 3 hours and 41 minutes across 7 sessions. As I run simultaneous timers when using the Quest Pro, I subtract this time from my overall totals. I continue to be mostly impressed with the Quest Pro. I did experience some challenges where the controllers kept saying that they were not tracking properly, even while I was using hand tracking. That resulted in a pop-up window that tracked with my line of sight, and it made it very hard to work productively in workrooms with the Pro this week. This was a challenging week, but that kind of makes sense. The first week was just all excitement. The second week was about keeping the momentum going. But this week is when I think the first plateau could hit, and I think it kind of did. I changed venues as well, moving back upstairs to my office, and that felt both new and exciting, but also a return to a space that I've worked in for years. I'm going to move back down to the pop-up desk next week in the library as I attempt to pull out of this plateau and end the first month of the VR office experiment as strongly as possible. As always, feel free to leave comments on the daily post if you have thoughts that you'd like to share. Thanks for watching. Till tomorrow.